Good Monday afternoon to you. Hope you had a great weekend. Hope you're having a great day. Thanks for joining us on Sports4CLE. Plenty of Browns to talk about. A little later in the show, Brad Ward from All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, as well as Doug Poundaley will join us, talk some Browns, and that's where we begin. Browns continue in this roster building season, and they have been connected with a couple of wide receivers. It's pretty obvious Browns need to build out that wide receiver room, and over the weekend, connected more closely to a couple of former Houston Texans wide receivers. So Browns have had talks with the Texans regarding Brandon Cooks at time during this offseason. We dovetail that on the previously mentioned. Browns are very interested in former Texans wide receiver Will Fuller. The two, both Cooks and Fuller, have worked with Deshaun Watson, both of them linked to the Browns as they try to build out that wide receiving core and the threat downfield for the passing game. Let's welcome in G. Bush. He is host of the Barbershop, 92.3 The Fan, Saturday mornings. G. Bush, you like either, you like both, you like neither. What do you think of these former guys? And the other thing to take me through, how important do you think it is, the familiarity with Deshaun Watson, trying to put guys around him that know what he does well and he knows what they do well?
You know, I think sometimes that might be a little understated, but I think what we saw this year with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase is that when a quarterback is comfortable with a receiver and they have that chemistry, they can be devastating. It can make for plays to just happen, and plays and big plays, and those are the type of big plays that you need in order to beat the good teams and going towards the playoffs, and that's where the Cleveland Browns want to get to. And so when you look at what they were able to do with the Cincinnati Bengals with that familiarity, it's a no-brainer to try to go and get Will Fuller and/or Brandon Cooks to come in here to be familiar with what Deshaun Watson wants to do. I think one of the things that I saw in just going back and reacclimating myself with, what Deshaun Watson does best, he throws a really pretty deep ball. And I was surprised how often Will Fuller was able to get loose. I was surprised about how much of a chemistry he had and able to get big time deep shots deep. So when you say those guys' names, Will Fuller and Brandon Cooks, I'm all for both of them if they can get them. Chances are they'll get one or the other, but I really like Will Fuller. He's been injury prone most of his career, but at the end of the day, we're looking for attributes now. You know, the Browns roster is pretty much complete. And we're not really looking for a complete defensive end or a complete defensive tackle because, to be honest with you, those guys aren't hanging around anymore. Those guys are either signed long-term deals, are back with their teams, or you're going to need to go out and spend big dollars for those guys or trade for those guys. So now the Browns have a complete roster. One of the things that they can do is look for those small attributes, and speed is one of those attributes that we're looking for on the offensive side of the football. And if they can get that to complement what Amari Cooper is going to be able to do, because I think he's going to have a breakout year this year. He's going to be playing with the best quarterback he's played with so far, and I think he's going to capitalize off of that. And if we can get somebody, maybe Jarvis or someone else to run the intermediate routes, I think the one thing that the Browns offense is missing is that deep shot, is that deep threat. And I think Brandon Cooks and/or Will Fuller can provide that, and they've done it at a high level with Deshaun Watson before as well.
Yeah, and the thing is, imagine the play-action passing game with the Browns running attack, because that's not something Deshaun Watson had when he was getting Will Fuller deep in Houston. So that I'm with you. That's an interesting dynamic. This one also, Jeremy Fowler over the weekend said the Browns are, quote, pushing to re-sign Jadeveon Clowney. $12 million per season for 2 years. Unknown if the Browns have upped that yet. And if a wide receiver is 1, Clowney is 1A, or you could flip it.
Yeah, I actually think because they did get Amari Cooper, and they have upgraded the quarterback position to a point where some of the stuff that the Browns have basically said to the fans and to the team is most of it was on the quarterback. We weren't good enough at quarterback to get the receivers the football in some areas. Yes, we do need to upgrade that position for receiver, But they're telling us in the way they move forward with Deshaun Watson that the quarterback was the majority of the issue with that, not being able to get the ball out. They fixed that with Deshaun Watson. Now you can look at it and say, okay, where's the next glaring weakness? Yes, we still need to get that receiver. If we can get a Will Fuller or Brandon Cooks, that really definitely takes that off the table. But for me, I would even say this is the number one is re-signing Jadeveon Clowney, because if you look at what Jadeveon Clowney is able to do, his best year, he had his Pro Bowl year back with the Texans. He almost had identical sacks or identical stats. 9 sacks here, 9 sacks back in that Pro Bowl year. Also, he had a little more activity. I think he had about 47 combined tackles, 31 combined tackles here. But keep in mind, he did miss some games. And he was hampered with a few injuries. But I think if you go back and watch the film, you watch the games that Jadeveon Clowney played at the end of 2021, I think people would agree that he was probably trending as one of the better defensive players on that unit. I remember the game he was, him and Myles Garrett were chasing, Lamar Jackson all around the football field. And Lamar was getting out of these sticky situations, but what you can do with Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett on both sides, there's nowhere you can run. You're not going to be outflanked. You're not going to out athleticism, the Browns. And getting him back is a huge part in making Myles Garrett the best defensive, player that he can be too. So I'm really pushing for that Jadeveon Clowney move.
Yep, I'm with you. They need to do something with that defensive line just to solidify it. All right, we've been calling for some special teams. We got Jakeem Grant. Now the Browns signed a punter. Corey Bojorquez is signed, and reports are it's a 2-year deal, and had the longest punts in each of the last 2 years, and also led the league with a 50.8-yard average per punt back in 2020. That is an upgrade, without question, in an area that needed to be upgraded.
People laugh and joke about kickers and punters all the time, but the Browns are at a stage of their development where you can't laugh at that stuff anymore, because these type of things, special teams issues in big-time games, cost you games. They cost you big games. Just go back to the Kansas City Chiefs game where the Scottish Hammer, drops a punt, drops the snap. That turns the complexion of that game. You can go back to a game not this year, but in 2020 against the Ravens. Mishandling the snap, gets tackled inside his own goal line, and now we're fighting an uphill battle against a division foe because we can't hold, snap, kick, and do the regular things. And so often the Cleveland Browns have shot themselves in the foot with not being able to just do the basic things that regular teams are able to do on special teams. If you look at what they're trying to do, they're trying to go ahead and say, hey, we got our returner. We just don't need guys back there fair catching. I mean, we all agree that Donovan Peoples-Jones was not, what we were looking for, but they just needed somebody to catch the football back there. Now we're looking to flip the field, and we're looking to do a little something in the return game. Also, we go out and get a punter. They must like the kid because they're giving him a 2-year deal. And anytime you're giving punters guaranteed money and long-term contracts, longer contracts, that shows they like him. Now the only thing we need to do is get the queen piece, so to speak, in the special teams game, and that's kicking. Kicking in Cleveland is a science. I've been trying to email Phil Dawson for about 5 to 7 weeks now. He won't return my Phil. If you're listening, we got a position for you on the Browns. We can get you together, do your weather forecast and all the flags and stuff up there. We need to know how you was hitting these field goals because we have not had anything since Phil Dawson has left here. And if we can get that together, I think the Browns have an advantage. And that's what we want. We want teams to come to Cleveland with terrible weather, and we can take advantage of that. And we haven't had that. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they're going to do to kind of finish it off with a kicker.
All right, G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, when we head to the voicemail of Truth and Reason, an idea about another receiver. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just a mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students, kindergarten through 12th grade, can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. We continue talking Browns with G. Bush, host of the Barbershop, 92.3 The Fan, 8 to noon on Saturdays. Time to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about a wide receiver target for the Browns.
I wanted to follow up on a question that I saw in a video. Jerry had asked you about a possible Baker-DK Metcalf trade. Didn't seem reasonable to me, and you already covered it. But what about Tyler Lockett? Is there a scenario where we offload Baker and then finagle a trade for Tyler Lockett? He seems like a more reasonable asset to be able to trade. Thanks.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. And G. Bush, I like that one. I see some possibilities with that. If the Seahawks decide they want to move on from Tyler Lockett and they're going young, trying to rebuild, that might be something that you can work with there.
Man, let me tell you something. Tyler Lockett is probably one of the most underrated receivers in the game. Now, here's the thing that's really interesting about Tyler Lockett is we just talked about Will Fuller and Brandon and Brandon Cooks. We just talked about what they can give in the deep game with that speed. The funny thing about Tyler Lockett is he can do both. And I looked at it. I thought Tyler Lockett was way older because he's been in my face for a long period of time with the good teams in Seattle with Russell Wilson. He is only 29 years old. He's 29 years old. And the thing that really I like about him is he gives you the inside routes, he gives you hands, and he has some deep ability. So when I'm looking at Tyler Lockett, if they can make a move for that, that is a home run. Take a look at what he did in 2021. Right, and the thing I like most is he's available and durable. He's played 16 games in the last 8 years, basically from 2015. He's played at least 15 games, going all the way to 2021, and so that durability is there. So you don't have to worry about some of the things Will Fuller and Cooks have. Now, take a look at his receiving. I mean, he's giving you 1,175 yards, almost 1,200 yards with the Seattle Seahawks last year, 8 touchdowns. And you look at his receptions, 73 receptions, and he's averaging 16.1 a catch. Now, I'll tell you what, if you can maneuver anything to bring in a guy who has those type of numbers, has that type of maneuverability, has some deep threat, catches the football, veteran, you do everything you can to get him. I salute to the caller for bringing that one up because it looks like the Seattle Seahawks are waving the white flag, so to speak. I don't know really kind of what they're doing. If they're going to move on from all these other guys, they might as well go ahead and get rid of Lockett. They may not give up DK Metcalf because they think they're going to get a quarterback and they need a receiver to kind of give them some pieces. But 29-year-old, older receiver, that's really not going to do anything for your youth movement. Move him on over here. He'd be a great fit, an awesome fit and working underneath routes and working with Deshaun Watson.
And the other thing is you figure, if Devontae Parker got a third-round pick, Lockett a third-round pick, you do the math, kind of frees up some cap space for you to fit Baker's contract in. It is a well thought out trade proposal, and I think it's a good one from the caller. So tip of the cap to you. Great job. All right, we're going to move on to NFL.com wide receiver trade signings. Who will improve and decline? So Amari Cooper, and they project 1,200 yards receiving, 10 touchdowns. If Watson is active for the bulk of the season, Cooper might have the best campaign of his career. And again, that's according to NFL.com. G. Bush, you were just saying that exact same thing in our first segment.
Yeah, I expect him. I think his ceiling, he can touch about 1,400 yards to me. Cleveland, get ready. This is the thing that I don't think people are getting. Amari Cooper is bar none the best receiver that the Browns have had. We know about Josh Gordon. He didn't reach his potential. He was a shooting star. Josh Gordon's one of the most talented guys I've ever seen play football. But when you're talking about down in, down out, and even this goes for Odell Beckham Jr., the way he goes about his business, he hasn't had that many injuries. He's a guy that can run crisp routes. He's a guy that can run everything on the route tree. He has a great set of hands. He is the quintessential number one receiver. And the great thing about him is, guess what? He's been in Cleveland how many months? We signed him how many? I haven't even heard him say nothing. Him and Nick Chubb are guys that are studs that don't say a word. I haven't heard a thing from him. And just think about how that permeates through the locker room. When we're going to be dealing with Deshaun Watson questions all year, the great thing about the rest of the team is you got a Myles Garrett who we don't hear much from. We don't hear much from Nick Chubb. We don't hear nothing from Amari Cooper. Denzel Ward is quiet as all get out. I think I've heard 3 interviews from Denzel Ward. The rest of the team is really flying under the radar, and that's what the Cleveland Browns need to do. Fly under the radar, win some games, and get to the point where we need to get to where it counts, and that's the playoffs. And Amari Cooper is going to be able to do that for us. That is a massive upgrade at receiver, and I'm just glad they went out and did that and made that move. And he's only 27. He's another guy I thought was a little older than that. 27 years old, still has some years left to go. Love the move.
All right, before we hit a quick break, let's listen in. So this is from KJM in the mornings on ESPN. Damian Woody about how good the Browns could be, reacting to something that Keyshawn Johnson had to say.
Listen, it's hard to argue against Deshaun Watson, acquiring Deshaun Watson. The last time we saw Deshaun Watson was a top 5 quarterback in this league. Make no mistake about that. There's no question. Amari Cooper, bringing him over as a receiver, number 1 receiver for the Cleveland Browns. That was really their number 1 need was the wide receiver position. They could still add on to that position.
So again, top 5 teams in the NFL leading into the draft. So after free agency, had the Browns at number 4, tops in the AFC. Might be a little high, but the quarterback makes a huge difference.
Yeah, I necessarily don't think it's too high. I think that the Cleveland Browns got massively better. It's hard to say because I think everybody wanted to write them off. I think everybody was ready to start with the dumpster fire talk again. But when you look at what they got, it's hard to argue with them being a top 5 team in the league. The backfield alone is the number 1 backfield. The offensive line is stellar. We know that. The thing that the Cleveland Browns didn't have was any sort of stability at receiver. Jarvis and Odell were in and out of lineups coming off injury. They didn't produce, and that hurt the team. But guess what? You went out and got Amari Cooper, and we just talked about how stellar he is and consistent he is. Then you're gonna really look at it and say, wow, well, they have one of the best edge rushers in the game. And when you're talking about building a team, the first thing you want to look at is edge rushers and corners. Well, they got dynamic, great ones. If they get Jadeveon Clowney back and bring him back, they got 2 of the best pass rushers. When you look at Newsom, what he's able to do, and you already have Denzel Ward, and I thought Greedy Williams had a great bounce back year. They got depth into corner positions. So now all you have to do is say, okay, well, all right, well, the ultimate equalizer is quarterback. Where do they stand at quarterback? And then you got one of the best dual threat quarterbacks in the game in Deshaun Watson in his prime. And I don't understand how you don't feel like the Browns can compete. If you go position by position by position, you look, and if you want to rank the top 5 positions across the board, you're going to find the Cleveland Browns players in the name at a top 5 position. So, it's all on paper. They still got to go out and do it. There might be a suspension coming, but I even like the fact that they went and got Jacoby Brissett to try to, to hold down the fort until Deshaun Watson gets back. I think the Browns are a top 5 team easily.
All right, G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. A question about Deshaun Watson. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
When it comes to selling you a mattress, most retailers are handing you a long line of extra steps that drive up costs and create confusion. At the Original Mattress Factory, we simplify the mattress shopping experience by building mattresses and box springs in our own local factories and selling them direct to you. It's short, sweet, and simply makes sense. So experience more than just the mattress store. Experience an original, the Original Mattress Factory.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to OhioLottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
Thanks for buying a fishing license. I want you to picture all the great things this simple purchase does. Like building public boat ramps, keeping local waters clean, and maintaining a healthy fish population.
What's Mom doing?
When you buy a fishing license, you do a lot. Every dollar protects and maintains your local waterways for future generations to enjoy. Visit takemefishing.org.
We continue talking Browns here on Sports4CLE. Time to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Deshaun Watson, new quarterback of the Cleveland Browns.
I just wanted to leave a comment about the Deshaun Watson acquisition and what this means for the Browns organization and the community, as well as their staff. As we all know, Callie is part of that staff, and I'm sure they have, female staff throughout the organization. How is Deshaun going to regain the trust with those females, as well as the Browns female fans in their community? So that's something that I'm not sure what the answer is. I know the Browns probably have a plan in place, but just wanted to make that known. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your show. Bye.
As always, appreciate all of the perspectives from the voicemail of Truth and Reason. And G. Bush, that's going to take a lot of work from Deshaun Watson, without question.
I looked at it, and I had a reporter by the name of Angeline Adams, and she runs a Facebook group, and it's really a group that it has a lot of women and a lot of women input in it. And I had her on my show on a barbershop a couple of days ago, and I asked her because I wanted to get her opinion on it, and she said, "Well, G. Bush, obviously that's something." She's worked as a paralegal for 30 years. And she says, sometimes when you're dealing with these things, people want a quick answer. People want a quick judgment so that they can feel better about supporting a person or not, right? It's kind of uncomfortable for you to say, okay, well, I'm going to go buy a Deshaun Watson jersey. I'm going to invest time. I'm going to invest my emotional, attention into it. And then it comes back that, it's found that, he's going to be liable for something in the civil lawsuits. And she said, but, when you're dealing with the court of law, these things don't happen in a quick fashion. These things have a process and a timetable, and it can drag on for a long period of time. We talk about football, but we're not experts when it comes to the legal situation. We are naive. And to the point, her point, she used the word ignorant. And that just means we don't understand. We want a quick answer now, but we haven't invested our time, energy, and effort into understanding what the legal process is on either the criminal or civil side. In terms of us going out and saying, how can Deshaun Watson, make it up to everybody else? Well, if he wants to fail and go out there and fail miserably, he should think about trying to make it up to everyone, because there's no way you can make up something to everybody. The only thing that you can do as a human being is be contrite. You can say, I'm going to work on being a better person every single day. And if you can do that and be yourself, you can move forward. Some people have already vindicated him in their mind because he's a good football player. Some people have already condemned him because they think he's guilty of what happened. Those people are the people that are not open to anything new. The people in the middle are the individuals that are just waiting, and hopefully there's more than not, that are waiting to see what comes of everything before they make their final decision as a person. And I would also say that everyone makes mistakes. We mentioned the individual, I believe for the Cleveland Browns, she's a tight ends coach. She has some issues with DUI, and I like the fact that Kevin Stefanski said that's not her. We're going to bring her back into the fold, and we're going to give her another opportunity to make amends and move forward with her life and continue to grow and be better. So everybody's going to make mistakes. I think everybody in this situation needs to just say, all right, well, let's see what happens in the civil cases. And then Deshaun lives his life, and then we'll take it from there.
Again, let the process play out. That's really the fair thing to do. All right, let's turn our attention now to Denzel Ward, playing in that fifth-year contract. So over the weekend, another youngish cornerback, Xavier Howard, signed a contract. 5 years, $90 million, $36 guaranteed is what the reports are for Xavier Howard. Now, Howard is 28. Denzel Ward is just 24. So that gives you an idea of what the Browns are looking at in terms of a contract for Denzel Ward. Probably just the price of Denzel Ward probably is going up a little bit.
Hey, in a great show, The Wire, they always say, man, shout out to The Wire. They say, hey, the price today ain't the price tomorrow. and Denzel Ward just got that next day price, which is a big upgrade. I think anything less than Jalen Ramsey money, that's what he's looking at. He's looking at Jalen Ramsey money. He's looking at Marlon Humphrey's money. In Baltimore, that's the type of money he wants. And when you see Xavier Howard, a guy who is decent, he's a good corner. I mean, good to really good corner. He's not Denzel Ward, and he's a little longer than two. He's pushing 30. So Denzel Ward coming out, and I think one of the things that Denzel being one of the youngest players in the draft, he's really, really going to benefit from the fact that not only could he potentially see one more deal, he may get the Darrelle Revis treatment and get 3 bites at the apple in terms of getting big time money, corner money, elite corner money, and still being in his prime. He's only 24. If he signs a 5-year deal, that puts him at 29. He could still go back and get another bite at the apple and potentially get another deal if he continues to play, stay injury free. So this just all this means is Denzel Ward is going to get a bag of money. And if we wait for it, that's the sound of the Brinks truck. Beep, beep, beep. It's coming, Denzel.
And you know
he's
what?
just being patient on it.
Buy stock in Denzel Ward because it's going up. All right, before we go to break, an article in the Akron Beacon Journal by Nate Ulrich, Browns beat reporter, over the weekend. And it alluded to the fact that the Haslams described themselves being alluded into a false sense of security in their first shot at ownership because of their Steelers experience, which included Pittsburgh winning the Super Bowl in 2018. That's a model franchise. Just do it like them, according to Jimmy Haslam. But you're not the ones making the decision, and the people were already in place. So again, it's kind of interesting. G. Bush, the Haslams kind of talking about they really were kind of surprised the first year ownership, and in fairness to them, they kept firing coaches and GMs, but heart in the right place. They wanted to win, and they look like they've kind of settled in a little bit, which is good to see.
Well, I think this is a prelude, and it gives you an insight into why they went after Deshaun Watson. It gives you, if you read these quotes and you look at it, you could fully understand what's going on in their mind state and what they're thinking about. They're like, hey, they had Ben Roethlisberger there. Now, at the time, Ben Roethlisberger had some controversy as well. We know what the controversy was. But like they said, he was coming into his own in his prime. They had the coach in play. Mike Tomlin was already there. They had a star defensive player in Troy Polamalu. That person was already there. You had the GM. They thought, Kevin Colbert, you had the GM that was there that was picking the players, and it was a way that the Steelers pick players. The Steelers always took the players that you think the Browns should have took. You're like, man, why couldn't we get them? The Ravens always get them, and the Steelers always get them. So now when you look at the playbook and you look at the way they thought it was going to be easy, they said, listen, we need to go ahead and replicate that. They got Troy Polamalu. We need to get a game record. We got Myles Garrett. Hey, they got the quarterback in Ben Roethlisberger. He's controversial, but you know what he did in his prime. His record stands for itself against the Browns. They went out and got Deshaun Watson because they understood, unless you are planning to take some risks and some chances and go for it, you're never going to get to the top of the mountain. And I think that it snapped, it stuck in focus for them when they had an opportunity to look at their team and they said, we got everything we need. We got the pieces. I'm comfortable with the front office. I'm comfortable with the coach. He was a coach of the year. We are right there. And the difference between them sticking with Baker and playing it out the fifth year, which would have been a thing that I think the old Browns would have done, they said, no, it's not good enough. We can strike when the iron's hot. Let's go for it. And they did. Now, on paper, they got the roster. They got everything they need to do, and they got the same type of talent level that Pittsburgh had that used to be a perennial power. All it is about is bringing in the action pieces, letting your coach, letting the GM bring those pieces in, and we can see the Browns on that podium. I think people think it's a little far away. Don't count the Browns out this year. If they can get everything together, you can see them with that Super Bowl trophy. I'm telling you.
All right, G. Bush and I are going to step aside, take one more time out, other side of the break. We'll talk a little bit about Baker Mayfield. Sports4CLE. Be right back. Stay with us. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine. G. Bush and I continue talking Browns. Let's head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one about Baker Mayfield.
So let's look at the stability of the quarterback situation in New England, Buffalo, Green Bay, San Francisco during Joe Montana's tenure, down into New Orleans, and on to Green Bay. What do all of those locations have in common? Easy. They've had one coach. Now to Baker Mayfield, 4 coaches in 4 years and 4 different offensive coordinators. So what quarterback do you know that could survive this? I still believe that Baker Mayfield is a starter and a quality football player going forward. His progress in his 3rd year was excellent.
As always, appreciate all of the voicemails. And G. Bush, you and I have talked. I don't have an issue with Baker Mayfield. I think he is a starter in the NFL. I think he's a pretty good quarterback. But he is wildly inconsistent. He was in Kevin Stefanski's offense with Alex Van Pelt as the offensive coordinator for 2 years. It wasn't 4. It was 3 in 4 years. But I get where he's going with it. I just don't think it's – I would have given you that last year. Second year in the system last year, and the Browns said it was an injury. He said it was an injury. Too inconsistent for a team that has Super Bowl aspirations.
Yeah, you know what? Let me pose this question to a lot of people because there's still a sum of people, and there's a large group of contingency people that still do think that Baker Mayfield, some of his issues were systematic, not being in the right system, not being in the same system, injuries, receivers, not being able to get open, all those good things. And they always really go back to the 1 year that he had in his third year. To be honest with you, that third year was in 8 games. The first 8 games that he played that year were terrible. The next 8 that he played in the second half of the season, he really came on in that second half of the season. He was a really showed a lot of potential, and he was frankly one of the top quarterbacks. I say top 10 quarterback, trending that way at the end of that season. But let me ask you this question: we always approach this thing from a Baker Mayfield standpoint and giving him the most optimum chance to make him a starter. What do you do with the rest of the guys in the locker room who are looking around the league and they're getting older every single year? You got a guy like Myles Garrett, and we don't hear from him. And these guys are saying, hey, look, I want an opportunity to play and win a championship. This is rampant in the league now. What happens if, you're still trying to worry about Baker Mayfield and can he play in 5 years? And all of a sudden, Myles Garrett is like, well, listen, you know what? You guys figure that out. While you're doing that, trade me somewhere else where I can win. And Denzel Ward says, I know you're going to offer me $90 million, but I can get that $90 million from somewhere else. So as you're trying to figure out and trying to, do the best for Baker, there's 6 other people on this team that are watching you in every step you make as an organization to figure out if they want to be here long term. And sometimes you got to take a choice. If I'm here at the doorstep, I got to look at what's best for the unit, not what's best for one person. Baker Mayfield will get another job. Baker Mayfield can play in this league. But if you look at it and you take a look around the league, the league is telling us he's a bottom third quarterback. Can he resurrect his career? Sure. I give everybody an opportunity as a man to prove me wrong. You got the final say in it, because at the end of the day, you're throwing the football, you're putting the work in. And if you put that work in and you do it, I'll come back and congratulate you and clap you, pat you on the back and say, he turned his career around. But as an owner, as a GM, and as a coach, you cannot afford to put everybody else at risk if you don't and you're not sure if this guy is going to help you get to where you want to go, because you won't be here for long if you get it wrong.
Yeah, I'm with you. And at a quarterback has to be consistent. You got to know what you're getting from that position more so than any other. And the Browns really didn't know what they were getting from Baker Mayfield. All right, so Baker Mayfield scheduled to appear on the You Never Know, You Know What I Mean podcast. And in the words, the immortal words of Herm Edwards, don't hit send. Baker on a podcast, what could go wrong, G. Bush?
Everything. G. Bush at a breakfast buffet. What can go wrong? Everything. My diet, cholesterol, all the above letter D.
Don't do it.
But I tell you what, don't do it to yourself. Baker, man, Albert Breer was on. He was on with Bull and the Fox on 92.3 The Fan, and I keep referencing this. And he said something that was so fascinating. He said, if Baker wants to help himself, you know what he should do? He probably won't do this, but what he should do, he should report to camp. I would report to all the offseason conditioning. I report to every little training, lifting session they got. And when they put a camera in front of your face, you should say, you know what? I've had a great time, here in Cleveland. We're just getting around the guys again. It's great to get around football. I talked to Deshaun. He's a really cool guy, really great guy. We've been talking about, digesting this thing with Kevin Stefanski's new playbook. And I'm just interested in just being around the guys and playing football again. Whatever happens in the future happens, but I'm back preparing myself to get back on the field. If he said that, everybody would be at a panic zero. We would lose our mind because we're like, Baker's he's planning on showing up. We can't kick him out. People would see this dude is focused. He's ready to go. Some people might think he's joking, but actions speak louder than words. There might be teams that say anybody that lost their team to another guy and they got a huge contract that he wants, if he does that, wow, he must be growing. He must learn his lesson. And I think people will be more apt and willing to bring him in and give him an opportunity. But going on a podcast and he's not a type of guy that's he's not passing on no questions. He's answering everything. He's shooting from the hip. I guarantee he's not rehearsing none of this stuff. And if you this could be, this is gasoline. I hope somebody got with him and said, Baker, just remember, Progressive is still here. We might be able to still get something. You're a good actor. Just don't burn it all down to the floor right now. Don't do it to yourself.
G. Bush, as always, man. Great stuff. Appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
No doubt, man. Appreciate you guys.
All right. G. Bush, host of The Barbershop, 92.3 The Fan. Make sure you listen to him 8 until noon on Saturday mornings. We're going to step aside, take a quick time out. We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, as well as Dog Pound Daily. More Browns talk straight ahead on Sports4CLE. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education program recognizes role model students and teachers from across Ohio. Nominations can now be done completely online. To nominate a deserving teacher or student, go to ohiolottery.com. In the About section, find Partners in Education. There you will find links to the nomination forms. Students kindergarten through 12th grade can be academic all-stars. Teachers can be honored as a Teacher of the Month. The Ohio Lottery Partners in Education, where stars shine.
I am powerful beyond my wildest imagination.
I will define my future.
I will keep challenging myself to improve.
Because I am a future leader of this great nation.
I will be responsible for raising a beautiful family.
And educating not only my generation, but many more to come.
I will make a difference in my community.
And I will stand up for what I believe in.
I will not settle for simply chasing my dreams. I will achieve them.
Because I was given a chance.
An opportunity.
A home.
At Family, Career, and Community Leaders of America.
The ultimate leadership experience.
FCCLA has been one of the greatest experiences of my life.
It's made me who I am today.
Join us. We'll build a new future together.
We continue talking Browns on Sports4CLE. We're going to head back to the voicemail of Truth and Reason. This one with an idea of an addition for the Browns on the defensive coaching staff.
Boy, I sure would like to see the front office hire Mike Singletary as a defensive coach. I think that when we get to the Super Bowl, he would be a plus, and he would help us know how to win. Thank you very much.
All right, we appreciate all of the voicemails. Let's welcome in Brad Ward from Dog Pound Daily, as well as the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. Brad, I don't know if there's a spot on the defensive coaching staff. I think Brown's pretty happy with what Joe Woods has been doing.
Yeah, Joe Woods has come on strong. I don't think they're looking to fill any positions. The thing with Mike Singletary, I'll just make a couple comments about him. I think in general, he's coached some really good linebacking corps. He interviewed with the Browns in 2017 for an undetermined job position. I think he's interviewed for a head coaching position before that. So, I mean, the Browns are familiar with him somewhat, some people in the front office. I think he'd be a great culture guy if they added him, but I don't think he's coached in the NFL since 2016 or 17. I think his last coaching job was a high school job. I think I looked it up, 2018, Trinity Christian Academy in Texas was his last coaching job. So that might be a bit of a stretch.
Yeah, I'm with you. All right. Brett, I know for BrownsWire.com you did a mock draft. You were part of a mock draft. This one was actually on Dog Pound Daily. Can you take us through this? So the Browns traded some picks. They end up with Sky Moore and an edge rusher from South Carolina. What do you think of those picks and the maneuvering through it?
Makes a lot of sense. You know, Sam Penix, he did this draft. He has come on my show quite a few times. I have a good relationship with Sam. He's very, very smart and has a good grasp on how the front office operates. You know, this is the kind of maneuvers that we see this front office make all the time. You know, up a few, back a few, gain value where they can. And in this mock draft, he does a lot of that maneuvering, right? So, and he ends up with Sky Moore, who I think is a great fit for this offense. If he's there, I think he fits really well. His, agility in short spaces and the ability to get open at all three levels of the field is something that would fit and fill out this room very nicely. I think that he would be a great add. And one of the premier guys that you could get in the second round. Sam adds a edge rusher, the kid from South Carolina in the third round, I believe. And then he adds, it was interesting, this mock was, then he added Zach Pascal in the seventh round. Now, I'm really high on Pascal from Kentucky, and I've seen him go as high as the third round. So it's interesting that he had him in the seventh round. I would have said either guy, whether it be the kid from South Carolina, his name escapes me now, or Zach Pascal, or Josh Pascal, pardon me. Zach Pascal, I'm thinking of a wide receiver in Indianapolis. Josh Pascal from Kentucky. Either guy I think would be a great add at the edge position. I like doubling up at edge. That makes a lot of sense. He also had Logan Hall going in the fourth round, who is a great fit. I've seen him mocked as high as 44 to the Browns. So I know that name has been bandied around a lot around the Browns, even as high as their very first pick in this draft, which would be at pick 44. So Logan Hall would be a really good fit as an interior piece to that defensive line. He took Kirby Joseph, a free safety, center field type free safety from Illinois, in the mid rounds, that's what the Browns need to add. If they go safety, they need to add that center fielder type guy, so that the guys on the roster, the safeties on the roster, John Johnson and Grant Delpit, can play closer to the line of scrimmage. That would enable them to do that. So they're looking for that free safety type. Kirby Joseph fits that role. And then he had them taking a hybrid tight end who's a really, really interesting pick. His name is very hard to pronounce. I'm going to give it a shot anyways, Dave. Chigoziem Okononkwo, I think. He's a hybrid tight end. Looks like the size of a wide receiver type, but they have him listed as a tight end and somebody that would fit well. And I think that Stefanski could get really creative with in his offense. You know how he likes his tight ends.
Yeah, I'm with you. And again, Sam, who was on the show Friday, actually, I love Moore. I like getting a couple of linemen that you need, the center fielder. If that plays out that way, I think the Browns would be pretty happy if those guys are ones they can bring in. Another Dog Pound Daily article. This one, 3 teams that are landing spots for Baker Mayfield. Let's run through these. I'll give them to you. Tell me you think how likely. They say the Giants, Steelers, and Seahawks. And the Giants, they say they're not sure with Daniel Jones. Just your thoughts.
To give up on Daniel Jones and take on Baker Mayfield, it feels like turning in, I don't even know how to equate that, to go to the store and turn in Duracell batteries for Energizer ones, right? I mean, it doesn't make any sense to me. I'm reaching for a comparison there. But hey, that works. They're the kind of the same thing. And honestly, I think there's some upside with Daniel Jones. And I don't think if I was the Giants, I would be ready to give up on him until I put some better offensive line and better weapons around him. I think he has some upside, and him and Baker. I mean, is that really much of a difference? For me, that doesn't really make a whole lot of sense. But I understand why they would say that. That's a place where, I mean, they're not going to compete this year. Let's be honest. So.
Okay, fair enough. All right, so another Baker Mayfield related one, and this one's kind of interesting. Pro Football Talk asks the question: could the key be trading Baker Mayfield? Could it be trading him in 2023 as opposed to 2022? So in other words, letting the entire season play out and doing it. And again, this was in conjunction. Charles Robinson from Yahoo Sports was the one that kicked around the idea initially. But it's kind of interesting because the fully guaranteed money kind of runs out. There's no commitment beyond the year. The question becomes, though, he's a free agent after that season. So it's just kind of interesting. Do you let it play out a little bit and then you're not on the hook for as much money? The situation's really interesting with Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, it is. I read that piece, and the interesting part about it, and I thought that was the most interesting, if they were to do that and then he were to leave in free agency, they would get some draft compensation there, I believe, a compensatory 4th or 5th round pick. So that kind of sets, as far as the market goes, it sets like a basement level market on him, if you were to wait him out that long. So if somebody did trade for him at that point, like that gives you a place to start your negotiations, where right now the negotiations are kind of all over the place. We're getting rumors that, Detroit's not interested, Carolina's not interested. And it's like, holy cow, like how are we going to get rid of this guy? I honestly think they should move him as soon as possible and by the draft, if possible. You mentioned the Steelers, to go back to the article before that. I don't know how he ends up with the Steelers. The Browns certainly aren't going to get him there. I don't see them releasing him either. So I don't really see that one. The one that makes the most sense is the Seahawks, right? And they liked him coming out of the draft. If you could get a mid-round draft pick, even a 5th or 6th at this point, even if you had to take on some of the contract to get off of him, get him out of the locker room. I mean, is he going to be okay with sitting out a year? It's really unlikely. It's a really interesting situation. But I think it would behoove the Browns to get off of his contract and get him on his way as soon as humanly possible without shooting themselves in the foot compensation-wise, if possible.
Brad Ward from the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast, BrownsWire.com, and I are going to step aside, take a quick time out. Other side of the break, we will talk some more about the Browns, including if a wide receiver trade makes sense for the Browns. Sports4CLE will be right back. Stay with us.
Come back to go forward. Back to learning new things. Back to pursuing your dreams. Tri-C has flexible learning options to fit your life. And every year, more than 1,000 local companies provide Tri-C students with real-world learning. The right education can boost your lifetime earning power by hundreds of thousands of dollars. Start now with a college education you can afford. Tri-C, where futures begin.
We continue talking Browns with Brad Ward from BrownsWire.com as well as the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. So the Browns solved their punter issues, as we mentioned a little bit earlier in the show. What about the kicker? Take us through that one, Brad.
I mean, this is a tough one, Dave. The kicker position, I mean, it's just been a terrible, since Phil Dawson left, it's just been a revolving door for the Browns. And they can't seem to nail down somebody. And more important now than ever, right? They're going to be competitive. Games are won week in, week out by field goal kickers. Unfortunately, I hate talking about kickers. It's a pet peeve of mine, that you have to talk about a kicker in the game of football. But, hey, we're here, and they don't have an answer. I love this kid, Cade York, out of LSU. The question is, how high do you have to draft him to get him, right? Like, would you would you be willing to spend a 5th round pick on a kicker with a bright future? Like, I mean, the Browns have done this before and failed. That's pretty high for a kicker. I don't know how he's going to go. Somebody could really reach on this kid because he got a ton of potential, but it's not like there's a ton of free agents out there that are worth, you're taking a flyer. The kicking position is fickle year in, year out as it is, right? Guys are hot one year and they're bad the next. So it's really hard to pin down the good ones, right? They took a chance on Zane Gonzalez in the draft, so they can't feel good about drafting a guy. But this kid looks like he's really good. I don't know how high you would use picks on him, though. That's the question.
Yeah, that's fair enough. And Andrew Berry has been pretty good late in the drafts in the 6th and 7th round with getting guys that can at least contribute. So I'm with you. You really do have to weigh that. All right. We talked a little bit earlier. Browns have been linked to potentially trading for Brandon Cooks. Does that make sense to you? Does trading for Brandon Cooks make sense? What do you think it would cost to get him?
Yeah, so reportedly, and I tweeted it out, I was reading an article too. Interestingly enough, they don't want to trade him. Everybody says they don't want to trade their guys, and then they turn around and trade him in a week, right? Like, so that doesn't really mean anything. They're like, be prepared to offer up a second or start conversations with the 2nd round pick if you call. That is too pricey for him. I would consider giving up a 3rd round pick for Cooks. He's in the last year of his deal. He's making like $12.6 million on his base contract this year. I don't necessarily think with Cooks that you have to give him an extension. Like, you could give up a 3rd or 4th, get him, let him play a year, and then let him be a free agent. Like, I don't think the Browns need him long-term, right? I think they need a stopgap or whatever. They just need to get as many guys in here to fill that room with talent as they can for this upcoming year and kind of figure things out as they go forward, see what rookies work out and things like that. So that makes some sense to me if they would budge on that 2nd round pick, what they were claiming they were holding to. I think that's too pricey for him.
Yeah, I'm with you. And normally teams will say, 1st round pick, and it's a 2nd or a 3rd. So a 2nd's usually a 3rd or a 4th. That's a starting point. But maybe this. And keep in mind, Browns do have 2 3rd round picks this year as well. All right, Rashard Higgins posted a farewell on his YouTube page to Cleveland. Let's listen in to Rashard Higgins.
Cleveland, what's happening? Sorry our journey had to end. It's been a damn long, good ride. The good, the bad, the ugly. To the organization, I just want to say thank you for believing in me. I was drafted there at the age of 21. I'm 27 now. And it's been a hell of a long journey, but I wouldn't trade it for nothing in this world. This is the beginning of a new chapter for me. I wish you guys the best. I love Cleveland forever. Thank you from the bottom of my heart.
All right, again, that was Rashard Higgins. Thank you to Cleveland. And Brett, it's kind of interesting. He was a guy you just couldn't figure out. It seemed like he had this great chemistry, and then it was every coaching staff he would kind of fall out of favor with. I can't figure that out for the life of me, Brad.
I've had the hardest time. I've had a lot of conversations on my show about this. First of all, they should have had Boys and Men, The End of the Road playing in the background in that video. I think that would have been perfect. But yeah, as far as Higgins goes, he has shown at times when Baker was playing his best, he was at his best. I mean, he was dynamic in the last 8 games of 2020, right? And fantastic and a huge threat for them and a weapon. But like you said, no matter who it was, whatever coaching staff came in, he found himself in the doghouse, in and out of the doghouse. Each year, I find it interesting, Dave, he started almost every year at the bottom of the depth chart and due to injuries, whatever, would make his way on the field and then perform really well. The only thing that I can think of to explain this is easier. He's really bad in practice. struggles with work ethic or doesn't take coaching well in practice or whatever. And this is all purely speculation. But when the lights are on, he excels and plays well in games. There's lots of guys like that, right? Guys that just show up in games and don't practice as well. For whatever reason, he just could not find himself in good standing with any coaching staffs long enough to sustain success for a whole season, right? He would get his shots and he would shine brightly, but he just kept finding himself in the doghouse, and so much so that last year he was pretty much gone. And now he is gone for good. So, I was a big fan of Higgins. I wish it would have worked out. He had a lot of talent. He's a huge Cleveland loves Rashad Higgins, So good for him. I wish him the best, but Browns are kind of it's a good time to part the ways. I think, they're moving on to a new quarterback and a new direction, and it's a good time for Higgins to move on, I think.
Brad Ward, as always, appreciate the time and the insight. Thanks very much.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Dave.
All right, Brad Ward. Make sure you read him, brownswire.com. Also, the host of the All Eyes on Cleveland podcast. That's going to do it for this edition of Sports for CLE. See you tomorrow at 4 o'clock. Scheduled guest, Mary Kay Cabot, Browns beat reporter for Plain Dealer and cleveland.com, and Casey Kinnaman from Dog Pound Daily. That's tomorrow, 4 o'clock, Sports for CLE. We'll see you then. Have a great night, everybody.